Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. As always, if you're new to the channel, what we're doing here is we are recreating the entire land of Hyrule in the art style of the Wind Waker. This is a 3D modeling fan art project. It's been really fun to imagine this world. This is a world that I've always wanted to see. Of course, you know, if you played Wind Waker, you know that all the islands of the Great Sea are the mountaintops of Hyrule, but we never get to really explore Hyrule. We see a small portion of it just around the castle, right? But that's all we get to see, just a little bit there underwater by just the castle by this path going to Ganon's Tower. It's a very small portion. But we're shown the Great Sea, which is the top of Hyrule. But we just never know how those islands connect to the mountains, how they connect to the world that we know from our other favorite Zelda games. And even though we've seen Hyrule since, I know so many people have wanted to imagine Hyrule in this art style in the Wind Waker, figuring out how it connects to those islands of the Great Sea. And that is what this project is all about. Using 3D modeling to bring that world to life, showing how the mountains connect to the mountaintops with these islands that we know and love from the Great Sea. This is Wind Waker Unflooded. That's the name of the project. It's Hyrule as you've never seen it before. Wind Waker Unflooded. So that's the spiel. Just wanted to always, in case you're new to the channel, give you the spiel. What is this project all about? And I think, like, if you've played Wind Waker, then I think it's pretty obvious to you what this project is. I just always feel the need to explain it because it's kind of niche. But I do think that this is something that, like, I've found is that, like, a lot of people who've played Wind Waker really get it. You know, it's like sometimes I get questions asking, like, you know, well, why are you doing this project, or where is it coming from? But not for this project. You know, it's for this project is usually Wind Waker fans see it and they go, oh, finally someone did it. You know, it's that feeling of like, we've always wanted to see this. We've been imagining this for 20 years and now we're seeing it. Even though we've seen Hyrule in other games, just being able to see it in this art style, merging with the islands, with this overworld that we love so much. You know, for me, it is a specific version of Hyrule that we've never gotten to see before that I've always wanted to, even if we've been able to see Hyrule since. So it's I don't know, like, that's where the project comes from, and it really scratches that itch for me. And I hope that if you're someone like me who grew up with Wind Waker and always wanted to see Hyrule, you know, more of Hyrule from that game, and were disappointed that you couldn't explore more, I hope that this project kind of satiates that for you, being able to just be able to see it in this 3D model, being able to look at this world in a new way. So I don't know, I'm very excited, and I've been really encouraged by how passionate y'all have been about the project as well, and how much feedback y'all have. And this is just another reminder. I say it in most videos, but I always want to encourage you to comment down below if you have any feedback, suggestions, even if it's negative criticism. Just I want to know your notes, because I know so many people care about Hyrule and Zelda and this world and Wind Waker, and there's so much love that people have, and people have been thinking about it for 20 years. And if there's something I'm doing that it just kind of makes you think, ooh, Joe, that's not how I would do it, I want you to let me know, because I want this to be a project that we all can feel like scratches the right itch, that we all can share some feeling of, yeah, this is it. This is Hyrule. This is how Hyrule would have looked in the art style of the Wind Waker. This is Wind Waker Unflooded, right? I want everyone to feel like there's a, you know, we can come together and find a consensus of what's the right way to bring this world to life. And that doesn't mean everyone will agree, and that's why I can't honor every comment. You know, and there are comments that will contradict each other, and I can't do it both ways. And that's just, you know, I just want y'all to be aware of that. But I do read the comments, and I want to incorporate as many of your suggestions as possible. I can go ahead and kind of respond to a couple that I've seen already. I haven't responded to comments in a while, I felt like, but just because, you know, usually there's just been so many, and I try to respond and, like, type something out too when I can, but I haven't done it in a video in a while. But also just because I've been cognizant of, like, I've been pre-recording a lot, and who knows, like, the comments I'm responding to in this video might be a month old. But I do want to shout out a couple, just because there are a couple people asking questions that I want to respond to. And this is a comment that I want to respond to in a Q&A. I don't know if that's already out by the time this video comes out. Who knows? This is just because I'm pre-recording. I'm not sure how things will line up, but I do want to go ahead and respond to it if I didn't get to it or didn't get to say much in the Q&A. But this is from Dragonborn Express 5650. Dragonborn's been commenting on a lot of videos, and I really thank you for commenting, Dragonborn. I just want to say that right out the gate. You've had some great ideas, and I thank you for that, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is like, I want to value y'all's suggestions, and Dragonborn has been leaving some great ones. So shout out. But Dragonborn, as of I'm recording this is from like an hour ago, but who knows? This may be weeks old by the time this video comes out. But Dragonborn said, you ever gonna do something like the Hyrule Navy or something to that effect? Not only would it be perfect for adding references to other games, showing that, of course, that you can travel via ship, but it would also be a long overdue addition to the kingdom's infrastructure, since Hyrule has been depicted as being close to the sea since Zelda 1 all the way back in 1986. 100%. And Dragonborn goes on to say, of course, even though this isn't going to be a mod, I'm not making a ROM hack on this channel. That's not the channel goal. I'm making a 3D model. That is what this channel is about. Dragonborn says, having a navy could be an interesting way of, starting to imagine side quests at the very least. And you can think about different things in relationship to that. Dragonborn talks about canal locks as an example of that, right? Like, you can imagine that extra location, especially as we have a river, right? And I want to make sure that the river is wide enough for ships. I'm probably going to use like Tetra's ship as like an example, just so I can kind of make sure it can weave through. And if I need to, I'll widen the river just a little bit. So that was simultaneously both a read through and a response to the comments. So, but yeah, no, really, thank you for commenting. And I totally agree. I've seen you suggest the Hyrule Navy before, and I don't think I may have responded before like, "Ooh, great idea," but I wanted to just go ahead and in a video say that, like, I see that. I think that's a great idea, both for access within the world, right, traveling via river and for shore. And I think that if I do that, then the river should not just connect from the castle lake to Lake Hylia, but there should be a connection from the castle lake to the coast for shore, and there can be canal systems all the way. I think that'd be a really great infrastructure thing, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I love. I love this kind of suggestion because it really opens up the world and asking questions about, well, how does this kingdom function, right? Because I've been building a lot of paths that could be roads, right? That I'm imagining like some of this could be paved, but most of this is not paved, but it's still like these paths make sense for like, like horses or carriages going from place to place. I've also, though, considered like doing like a small train system. And I guess like, let me know what y'all think about that as far as infrastructure goes. If y'all think that would stick out too much, or, how you feel about that. But it's something I've thought about. I'm not sure that trains are appropriate, even though I love trains. So as we all do. So I think if that's something that makes sense to y'all, then I'd be interested in incorporating it. But also, that's something that we usually don't see train tracks in Hyrule. And the one game that does feature train tracks makes it very clear that it's not the same version of Hyrule. That said, like, I think the technology could be there, but that's just, let me know what y'all think. At the very least, I do want to incorporate tracks for basically like a Goron mine section. I don't know who commented that, but I saw recently a comment suggesting more like tracks for like an exterior mining track kind of a setup. And I totally agree with that suggestion. It could use like kind of carts and showing that they're transporting goods, and whether that's like using like train tracks to go through the whole kingdom, or they're just using kind of mining cart tracks just for Death Mountain. Either way, we got options. So if you want to be able to support me as a creator, there's several ways that you can do that. Become a member on Patreon. It gives you access to exclusive bonus features and early access content in all of my filmmaking projects. Stuff like early access to scripts that I'm writing, storyboards, previs, rough cuts, and music that I compose. I'm a composer, and any music that you've heard in the background of this video was my music. So go to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music and type in Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Look up Joe Kendrick on Spotify. All this to say is like, I really love these infrastructure questions, because I feel like there's probably a lot of us out here that are nerds for infrastructure, but that's definitely one of my, I can't say it's one of my passions. I just think it's cool, just because I don't know enough and I want to keep learning, right? Something that fascinates me that to get into, I think, is like city design, city planning. the stuff that like Walt Disney was thinking about at the end of his life, excuse me. That really fascinates me. Just like his questions about what does the ideal city look like. And I don't necessarily think he was close to the answer. I think his expertise was not necessarily in urban development. So I'm not sure that came from a place of expertise for Walt Disney. I don't know if I've talked about Walt Disney and Epcot on the channel before. I've never even like been to the realized version of Epcot. I just think his concept for it was really interesting. Just like from that, like just because he was willing to ask the question about like, well, what does the ideal world look like? And whether that came from a place of expertise or not, I really respect that he wanted to ask that question. And I don't know, that's something that I would definitely love to get into myself as an artist, just to kind of imagine that. Because I really do feel, and not to get on this tangent, but there's so many dystopian stories. And I think dystopian stories are so useful to tell as a cautionary tale so that we don't let our society get that bad. And often dystopia stories are a dark reflection of the truth. And I think it's great to be able to confront that, whether that's in stuff like Star Wars and confronting, you know, these political realities and, you know, being able to spot the Empire so that we can fight against it, and getting everyone to ask those questions about like, well, you know, what is the Empire meant to represent? You know, sure, it's the fall of Rome, sure, it's Nazi Germany, but, you know, what other countries might the Empire be meant to be a metaphor for? And how should we then maybe, how can these stories get us to think about the world that we live in? You know, whether I don't know, I don't want to say too much more than that, but the point is, I think dystopian stories are great for asking those questions. But also, like, I kind of believe that, like, you know, in all these great dystopian stories, it's like I kind of want people to imagine a better world at the same time, and I want more utopian stories. And I kind of feel like something we've had an issue with androids recently, or like humanoid robots, right? This idea of like, how are we imagining humanoid robots, or how are we imagining AI and what AI can do? And so many stories about AI and robots are dystopian. And I worry about that now that AI is becoming a reality within the world that we live in, that we haven't been able to draw enough from utopian stories. And the things that have inspired real world AI have been dystopian stories. And that worries me. You know, like, I don't know, AI is a whole discussion, but just like to put it simply, like, people are inspired by art and stories and movies. And I feel like AI is something that we know can be very powerful. But when so many of the stories are dystopian and cautionary tales, we need to be able to draw from stories that are utopian and show how robots can benefit society and how AI can benefit society. And I think we need more stories like that, showing what does an ideal world look like. And that doesn't mean that there's no conflict in the story, right? Because of course, for storytelling, you need conflict. But even that can be like a character-based conflict within what could be a perfect world, right? And what would it mean to get closer to a perfect world? I think those are questions worth asking in storytelling. And so I don't know, maybe that's something that we all can think about. I'm sure that there's writers who watch this. I don't know. I have the feeling that if you're a Zelda fan and you're into fantasy stories, and you know, and you're like me and you're a bit of a nerd, and especially if you're interested in this channel, which is a fan art project, you know, that requires a lot of world building, and I feel like if that interests you, then, you know, there's probably writers in my audience. And of course, I'm a writer as well. I'm a filmmaker, and I love doing my own movies. And so I don't know. I guess like a call to action. Comment down below if you're a writer, and kind of how you would be interested in tackling utopia in your stories. I don't know, like, I'd be interested on this channel maybe of like, if there is, like, I think there are a lot of creative people who are subscribed. I just, you know, I there's a lot that I don't know. I know there's a couple of musicians, of course, in the community, but I guess, like, let me know if y'all are fellow creatives as well, making your own 3D projects, whether you're 3D artists or writers or musicians. I'd love to lift up what y'all are doing and maybe do a kind of either like a book club or on the channel, or be able to talk about our own creative projects. And I want to lift up y'all's creativity as well. But anyway, maybe that's something to talk about in a future video. But I would love just to kind of create those community spaces on the channel as well, to lift up y'all's creativity and writing and fan art and music and whatever that is. I want to celebrate y'all's creativity on the channel. But anyway, all this to say, I think I'm going to start wrapping up the video. Thank y'all so much for watching. If y'all want to be able to support me as a creator, I encourage y'all to become a member on Patreon. What am I trying to say? Becoming a Patreon member gives you behind the scenes access to all kinds of bonus content from my filmmaking projects. Stuff like scripts that I'm working on, storyboards, previs, rough cuts, all kinds of things for my filmmaking projects, and music that I'm composing. I'm a composer. And becoming a Patreon member gives you early access to that. And you can listen to my music on Spotify or Apple Music. Type in Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Listen to Joe Kendrick on Spotify. I think that's it. Thank y'all so much for watching. As always, I'll let y'all go.